Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Asian Vision Dialogue. Our topic today will be talking about the analysis on China-Philippines relations in the South China Sea. We will be focusing on the escalation of territorial disputes between China and the Philippines and also the scenario for both parties to reach a peaceful resolution. Today, we are honored to have honorable guest speaker, Dr. Joseph Matthew. Currently, he is a senior professor at Wealthy International University. Without further ado, please join me to welcome Dr. Joseph to our program. Good morning, Doctor.
Thank you very much.
And welcome to our Asian Vision Dialogue.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yes, thank you. Without further ado, I would like to kickstart to our discussion. As we know that the situations between China and the Philippines in the South China Sea recently still remain a complex relations relevant with the competing claims over Spratly's islands. So first of all, what is your overview toward the current scenario between China and the Philippines in the South China Sea?
Thank you very much for your question. And I'm really honored to be here again. And now, when you talk about the current scenario of the China-Philippine-South China Sea dispute, it actually, from the last 2 years, it has escalated. Tension is very high in the South China Sea. And there has been a lot of clashes and the water cannon and this we use. And then the basic issue, before we elaborate the causes of dispute, we have to understand what is the dispute is all about. There are two territorial disputes between China and the Philippines. Number one is the Scarborough Shoal, which is come in the South China Sea, but it is in the west of the Philippines. Second is the Spratly Islands, which is island. There are 100 islands, and one of the islands which is occupied by the Philippine army is called the Second Thomas Shoal. Now, these two these two territory is a bone of contention between Philippines and China, and the reason that escalation is coming because on the Second Thomas Shoal, in the 1990, the Philippines, they grounded the World War II, the abandoned ship, which is around 100 meter. And then they stationed the crew member over there to deter the Chinese to come and take over the islands. So from that sometime, so the crew member on the island, on the ship, they need a supply. So the Philippine Army, Philippine Coast Guard, they sending the supply. Whenever they going for resupplying the food or water to the people on the ship, there is a clash, because then the clash occur because the Chinese Coast Guard, they resist, they stop them. So basically scenario is that the China and the Philippines have a conflict between the two territory. One is, I showed you, is called the Scarborough Shoal, and second is the Second Thomas Shoal. These are the two bone of contention or territory dispute between Philippines and China.
Thank you, Doctor. So the controversy between China and the Philippines still continue regarding to the territorial dispute, and an escalating diplomatic role and recent maritime run-in between the two countries have made a highly strategic South China Sea a plus point. So what are the key areas of the dispute, and how will this dispute affect the diplomatic relations between the two countries and also security and international trade?
Thank you for this very important question, and it needs the explanation and elaboration of this question and the answer also. Now, since the Marcos, government, they came into the power in 2022, the Marcos government had taken completely U-turn from all the policy and strategy of the previous government of President Rodrigo Duterte. Now, they completely take the U-turn and now they have completely abandoned that policy. If you go back 6 years, from 2016 to 2022, when the Rodrigo Duterte was the president of the Philippines, there was no clash. There was no conflict. There was a little bit, but not that scale. There was no clash, and all the 6 years, the Philippines and China, they work on the different projects, and there was completely unanimity, and there was a complete peace between two countries. After the Marco Duterte came into the power, I believe since the Marcos Jr. does not have any background, he doesn't have any experience of dealing those kind of conflict. So actually he was driving by those people who were surrounding him. He has been infiltrated in his cabinet and is also in the close circle are those people who are pro-Westerner, pro-USA or anti-China. And these people are driving him to the path of the conflict or the path of the confrontation instead of the collaboration. So now you see, now the Marco Jr. have taken the path that is completely distinct himself from all the strategy and policy of the previous government. Now I will give you the few facts that can make you clear the why Marcos Jr. is walking on the path of the war or confrontation, which actually he believe that maybe the other external forces will help him to win this war or actually make him like a sort of like a hero that who have fought for the territorial integrity of the Philippines. But he doesn't understand the consequences of the war. Now let's start from the tripartite. When Marcos came into the power, the first defense alliance is called the tripartite alliance between US, Philippines, and the Japan. They make the defense alliance. Now, when they created this defense alliance between USA, Japan, and the Philippines, it created sort of like a tension and escalating the situation more, because it was completely out of the way that Philippines need any defense alliance in the South China Sea. So anyway, he made the alliance. Second, he start a military exercise with the US in the South China Sea, in the disputed water. Second step he has taken to start, there were 18,000 soldiers that took the part in the military exercise in the disputed water of the South China Sea. Now you can imagine, when the 18,000 soldiers are taking part, what will be the reaction of the China? What will be the reaction of the other country in the South China Sea? Second. Now third part he did it actually, he allowed 4 more bases of American in the Philippines. They already have 5 bases. American have 5 bases. He allowed 4 more bases, American, to control the whole, the South China Sea, the belt, where the dispute is, especially the Luzon Island, which is very close to the Strait of Taiwan. And then he allowed them 4. So their total now USA bases are 9. 9 USA bases are in the Philippines. Now you can imagine what will be the reaction of the China, whether this will be help him to resolve the problem with the China. I don't believe it. Then number 4, what he did, the American, they install a ballistic missile, I mean the medium range ballistic missile on the Luzon Island, north of the Luzon Island, which is very close. Now this ballistic missile launcher have a range of 1,600 kilometers. They can fire the missile. So it means the all South China Sea, the Taiwan Strait, and the east coast of the China is under the target. Now can you imagine that China is looking at this and how the Chinese will feel about this? How the other country in the region, like Brunei, Malaysia, how they feel about it? What will be their reaction? Whether this move, this action of the Philippines will help to solve the problem, de-escalate or escalate it. After that, on May 5th, May 5th in Hawaii. Now May 5th in the Hawaii, the USA, Japan, Australia, and Philippines, they formed the new defense alliance. I mean, you already have a tripartite alliance between Japan, USA, and Philippines. Now here in the Hawaii on the 5th May, they created new defense alliance, and that alliance called Squad. Squad is an alliance of the 4 countries, US, Japan, Australia, and Philippines. Now, we do not understand, we political analysts, we do not understand why Philippines need this alliance. Now look at this, all the action of the Philippines, how this Philippine action is creating and escalating the tension in the South China Sea. After that, you have Squad. One is a Squad with, and then you have a Quad. The Quad is also the defense alliance, which is consistent on Japan, Australia, India, and the USA. Then you have a AUKUS. Now look at it. In the South China Sea and the Asia Pacific, you have a Quad, you have a AUKUS, and you have a Squad. Now this defense alliance, do you think that this defense alliance will help Philippines to resolve the territorial dispute with China or de-escalate the tension? Nobody in the right mind will say yes. Actually, whatever the measures Marcos Jr. is taking toward a confrontation. Now, if you look at this scenario, Philippines is not only country who claim it on the South China Sea. There are 6 countries who have claim on the South China's territories. Number 1 is Brunei. You have Indonesia. You have Malaysia. You have Philippines. You have Taiwan and Vietnam. Now look at this, all 6 countries. They have never went that far. They did not allow the foreign troop in their country to resolve the South China Sea conflict with China. Brunei didn't do it. Indonesia didn't do it. How come the Philippines is inviting the US Army to come and station there and store their equipment, their missile on the sovereign soil of the Philippines? Now these are all things if you look at it. So Philippine attitude toward the South China Sea is completely changing. He's looking for confrontation. He's not looking for collaboration, cooperation, or de-escalation of the situation. Now, if you look back, by inviting the US and allowing the access to the 4 more bases, Philippines in violation of the ASEAN Charter. Because according to the ASEAN Charter, the member states should not allow the foreign troop in their country. So look at this. And before that, 22 years ago, China, ASEAN, they approved DOC, Declaration of the Party of Conduct in the South China Sea. 22 years ago in Cambodia, The ASEAN, China, they approve, they accept DOC. According to DOC, all the China or the South China Sea conflict should be dealt bilaterally, and all the all the dispute will be have a freeze at the status quo. They have freezing the state, mean as it is. Do not modify, do not change. They approved. That when they approved in 2002 this DOC, then how come Philippines now violating this agreement by inviting the American troop on their soil and installing the ballistic missile, which is not only threat to the China but all the whole region. So all the action of the Philippines are directing toward a confrontation, escalating a tension, or maybe probably what most of the analysts they believe will lead to the armed conflict. So when looking the whole scenario and the part of this, what the China is doing is defending themselves. So the way of dealing it is not the confrontation, but the collaboration, which actually the Marcos government, present government, has completely diverted. It completely abandoned all the policy of the previous government strategy. Even though, I have to remind you here, in 2016, when the Rodrigo Duterte was elected as a president of the Philippines, he went to the China, and then they have a understanding about it, how to resolve, how to face this South China Sea, and they come up with we call the bilateral cooperative mechanism. They come up with a mechanism that in the case when you have a conflict, they have a consultative mechanism where they can work together and they can resolve that problem. That mechanism is also abandoned by the Marcos government. They do not recognize. So you look at this, Marcos government is completely at the present has abandoned all the cooperation of the previous government strategy, and now they are moving towards a confrontation which is actually is not in the interest of the Philippines, but also the region and especially the ASEAN. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. So moving on to our next question. The U.S. is a long-standing ally of the Philippines, bound by the 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty. And this treaty obliged the U.S. To defend the Philippines in case of an armed attack. So what should the U.S. do to minimize being tangled and escalated tensions between the China and the Philippines while maintaining good relations with Philippines and avoid military confrontation with China?
Yeah, this is a very good question. How the USA can minimize the tension between the US, between China and Philippines. Now, actually, if you look at the role of the USA, in my living memory, if you take the forensic analysis of the war in the world, in my living memory, as long as I know it, if you starting the forensic analysis of the Second World War, you can find the footprint and the fingerprint of the USA. The first Hiroshima, Nagasaki, they dropped the bomb in the Second World War. What is the role of the USA in the Second World War? I'm giving you the forensic analysis of all the war in our living memory. So starting from the World War II, where the USA dropped the atomic bomb on the Hiroshima, Nagasaki. After that, we come to the Korean War. You see the fingerprint and the footprint of the USA in the South Korean War. Then you come to the Vietnam War. You see the footprint of the USA and the fingerprint in the Vietnam. Then you come to the Iraq War. You see the USA footprint. You go to the Afghanistan War, USA footprint. You go to the Ukraine War, USA. You go to the Gaza War, US. forensic analysis telling wherever the war, you find the footprint and the fingerprint of the USA. Now, I do not remember in my living memory that USA has ever bring the peace in the two rival group or two countries who are fighting with each other bring the peace. I don't remember. If somebody remember, have to tell me. The USA has never bring the peace between two fighting group. I don't remember anything. Look at the role of China. China bring the peace between the two countries, Saudi Arabia and Iran. This conflict was 1400 years old, and the China brought the peace between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Now, the both countries have a diplomatic relation. They have a very good relationship with each other. And credit go to the China. Now, how come USA is not doing this? How come the USA is not encouraging Philippines to talk and open the door of the peace and negotiation with China? Instead of asking him to go and negotiate, America in installing a ballistic missile, making Philippines ready for a war. How come? How the USA can minimize? America can only minimize or de-escalate the tension by not interfering into the internal affair of the regional issues. Stop interfering in the regional issue. Stop interfering in the internal issue of the countries. Try to recognizing the security concern of other countries. Not trying to be bully, but through the sanction, through the threatening to the other country. So you look at the whole scenario. I think if America is sincere and they don't want war in South China Sea, the first thing they have to do, they have to withdraw from the Philippine Islands. They should completely withdraw from the South China Sea. They stop bullying the other countries in the region. Stop instigating Philippines to stand up against the China. Stop providing the missile or equipment to China, to the Philippines to fight against the China. These are the things, if the America will go seriously, this will be minimize the tension, de-escalate the situation. But do you think that America will do that? No, this is something, it's a dream. It's just like a dream that if the America will be stand up and telling the Philippines, please go and talk with the China, open the negotiation door, have a political settlement, have a legal settlement through the bilateral talk and through the ASEAN. So I'm very doubtful how the USA will minimize the tension, because the USA is trying to weaponizing the Philippines and preparing Philippines psychologically and physically for the war with China. So I do not believe that the America have a concept, have an intention to de-escalate the situation. So it is a Philippines have to realize. This is the Philippines have to realize the fact what the war could do to the country. We have to look around what is happening in the Ukraine, what is happening in the Gaza. So Philippines have to realize, Philippines have to take the initiative and stop listening to the outsider and look inside and what is the best interest of the Philippines they should do it. So, I mean, the USA or Japan, or they're all outsider and they're influencing. So, any armed conflict between the Philippines and the China will actually destabilize the whole region. And it also affect on the centrality of the ASEAN, because then ASEAN will become like a party in the conflict. And I do not believe the ASEAN country will support Philippines if we go to armed conflict with the China. So there look like there will be division. There will be division in the ASEAN, will be divide. And this is what probably the external forces are probably motivated to divide the ASEAN. Centralities, ASEAN independent, and ASEAN impartiality. These are the very important things that ASEAN is keeping it. But look like the ASEAN, that Philippines is going on the path that will actually affect not only the Philippines, but the region and also the ASEAN at large. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. So moving on to our last question. As we know that China-Philippines relation in the South China Sea still remain uncertain. So from your perspective, what are the possibility resolution for both countries to reach a diplomatic settlements and peace?
Yeah, thank you. As I mentioned earlier, only the way to de-escalate the tension in the South China Sea is to open the door of negotiation, open the door of the dialogue. You know, former Prime Minister Samdech Techo Hun Sen said, another war cannot bring the peace. War cannot bring the peace. Philippines have to realize this thing. It's not US, Philippines. Marcos Jr. administration must understand the war will never bring the peace. War always brings the destruction. Peace will come only with the dialogue, with political settlement, with negotiation. I give you the example from this platform. I'm giving the example of Cambodia. Cambodia have a three neighbor countries: Thailand, Laos, and Vietnam, right? And the south, Cambodia have a sea because the Gulf of Thailand. Now look at it. Unfortunately, all these countries, three countries, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia have a territorial dispute with all three countries. Cambodia have a dispute of the territory with Thailand. Cambodia have a territory dispute with Laos. Cambodia have a territory dispute with Vietnam. But Cambodia did go to the war? No. We settle all our territorial dispute with our neighbor through dialogue. Cambodia is always a central, is an example for the world that maybe in very difficult situation, dialogue and negotiation and political settlement is the only way out, not the war. Cambodia have learned from his past history, war cannot bring the peace. War cannot bring the peace. So Philippines have to realize the fact. They look up to the Cambodia and see how Cambodia have achieved territorial dispute with the Thailand. I mean, Philippines have only territorial dispute with China. Cambodia have with three countries, with the Thailand, Laos, and then how they settle. Cambodia never went because it's a will, it's a leadership, it's a willingness, it's an intention. That's why Cambodia has a peace for about 20-25 years. So you look at this scenario. So Philippines have to learn a lot from Cambodia. How to bring the peace, how to settle the conflict. Going on the war is mean failure of the diplomacy, like what you were talking about. Going on to the war is a failure of diplomacy, failure of the negotiation, failure of the political will. So the Philippines have to realize that working with the outsider will never benefit to the Philippines. Going to the war will never benefit the Philippines. Making a confrontation in the South China Sea will never benefit to the Philippines. Benefit is a political settlement, negotiation, and withdrawal of the all foreign troops from the Philippines is only the way out. Otherwise, the Marcos Jr. is taken to the country on the path of destruction, which not only destabilize the Philippines but also the region, and it also negatively affect on the ASEAN centrality, on ASEAN independence, and ASEAN impartiality. So Philippines not only consider itself but also look to the region and especially the ASEAN. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor, for your sharing insightful perspective related to China-Philippine relation in the South China Sea. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, our discussion has now come to an end. I would like to thank Dr. Joseph once again for your present and valuable time to our program today.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching and see you in the next episode.